Good morning students, welcome to So Simple tutorial. The more you sit in peace, the less we bleed in war. Don't think it has a military connotation only. It applies to everyone in every field, be it a sportsperson, a bodybuilder, a professional or a student. What does sweating mean here? It means sheer hard work. Do the hard work now so that it is easy later. Succeeding in life and battle is all about training, preparation and putting in the effort to rise above the adversities that each one will face. This acts as a booster for me. It keeps my morale high. What about you? So how is the Josh? Students, let us now today discuss lesson unit 2 of lesson Nationalism in India. In the previous class, we have seen that Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation program was adopted by the Congress at Nagpur in December 1920 and therefore the non-cooperation movement started in January 1921. Various social groups participated in this movement, each one with its own specific aspirations. All of them responded to the call of Swaraj, but the term meant different things to different people. We shall read this lesson under 3 different heads. Movement in the towns, rebellion in the countryside and Swaraj in plantations. Let's start movement in the towns first. It started with middle class participation in the cities. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges and joined national schools and colleges that had sprung up all over the country. The schools and colleges run by the nationalists were called national schools. It was at this time that the Jamia Millia Islamia of Aligarh, the Bihar Vidyapeeth, the Kashi Vidyapeeth and the Gujarat Vidyapeeth had come into existence. The Jamia Millia later shifted to Delhi. Headmasters and teachers resigned. Hundreds of lawyers including C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru, Rajendra Prasad and Sardar Patel gave up their legal practice. The council elections were boycotted in most provinces except in Madras, where the Justice Party was dominant. The party promoted the interests of non-Brahmins. It neither joined the non-cooperation movement nor boycotted elections. This party believed that council elections was the only way of getting power and promoting interests, which only Brahmins had access to. The non-cooperation movement was bound to have its impact on the economic front also. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor shops were picketed. Students, what is picketing? Picket is a form of demonstration by which people block the entrance to a shop, office or factory in order to prevent workers or customers from entering it. Foreign clothes were burnt in huge bonfires. Khadi soon became a symbol of freedom. The import of foreign goods halved between 1921 and 1922. Its value dropping from rupees 102 crores to 57 crores. You can see how the economy was hit hard. In many places, merchants refused to trade in foreign goods and financed foreign trade. When people discarded imported goods and started to wear Indian ones, the production of Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. But then, the movement could not sustain for long and started to slow down. Poor people could not boycott mill clothes for long because they could not afford khadi clothes. Khadi was more expensive compared to mill-made clothes. Secondly, there was absence of enough alternate Indian institutions and they were slow to come. So the students, teachers and lawyers joined back. Let us now come to the next subtopic, rebellion in the countryside. From the cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside. Here we shall discuss peasants in the Awadh region and tribals in the Gudam hills of Andhra Pradesh. In Awadh, peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra. Baba Ramchandra was a sannyasi who had been to Fiji as an indentured laborer. In June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru was going around the villages in Awadh. He talked to the villagers and tried to understand their grievances. By October, Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra and a few others. Soon around 300 branches were set up in that region. Here the peasants were against the landlords and talukdars who used to demand very high rents from them. Landlord forced them to do begar. What is begar? Begar is a practice where the worker is forced to render service to the master free of charge or at a nominal remuneration. They were also unhappy as they had no security of tenure. They were regularly evicted so that they could acquire no right over the leased land. So what were the demands of the peasants? They demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. In some places, Nai Dhobi Bandhs were organized by the panchayats. When the non-cooperation movement started, Congress tried to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into a wider struggle. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were looted. The hoarded grains were taken over. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhi had declared that no taxes were to be paid and land was to be distributed among the poor. The name of Mahatma Gandhi was being used in all their actions and aspirations. Congress was not happy with this form of movement. Let us now see what happened in Andhra Pradesh. In early 1920s, a military guerrilla movement spread in the Gudam hills of Andhra Pradesh. Here, the government had implemented the Forest Act, which meant that their entries into the forest to graze their cattle or to collect their fuel or fruits were banned. This affected their livelihood. They were angry as they felt that their traditional rights were denied. They were led by an interesting figure named Elluri Sitaram Raju. He was very much inspired by the non-cooperation movement. He persuaded people to wear khadi and to give up drinking. When the government forced them to do begar for road building, these people revolted. The Gudam rebels attacked the police stations, attempted to kill British officials and carried out guerrilla warfare to achieve Swaraj. We shall now move to a new subtopic, Swaraj in the plantations. Before I start, I want to discuss Inland Emigration Act of 1859. Under this law, plantation workers were not allowed to leave the plantations or the tea gardens without permission, and in fact they were rarely given such permissions. What does that mean? That means that the workers were confined to the space of tea gardens due to this act. We already know that from the late 19th century, tea plantations started coming up. Tribals were recruited in large numbers to work in the tea plantations of Assam. They were recruited through contractors who paid them miserably less wages and prevented them from returning home. For them, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of the confined area in which they were enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village they had come from. When the workers heard of the non-cooperation movement, they defied the authorities and headed home. They believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in the villages. However, they never reached home. They were caught up by the police and beaten up brutally. So how did these people interpret the term Swaraj? They imagined it to be a time when all sufferings and all troubles would be over. This brings us to the close of the lesson. But before we close, let's have a recap.
Let us begin our recap with the movement in the towns. First, the extent of participation. What I mean with the extent is who all actually participated. So in towns, we see students who left the schools and colleges. We saw headmasters and teachers resigning. We have seen the lawyers giving up their legal practice, and that is why it is written school, colleges, courts boycotted. Next is the economic impact of non-cooperation movement. Under this, foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops were picketed, foreign clothes were burnt in huge bonfires. The impact of foreign goods halved between 1921 and 1922. Merchants refused to trade in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. Production of Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. Then we have read why did the non-cooperation movement slow down. 1. Khadi was expensive, which poor people could not afford. 2. Absence of alternate Indian institutions, and therefore the students, traders, lawyers joined back. Next, rebellion in the countryside. We have read this subunit in two parts. One is peasants, the other one is tribals. We have read how this peasants' upsurge took place in Awadh under Baba Ramchandra. Why the peasants were unhappy, what were their demands. So they were led by Baba Ramchandra. The movement was against landlords and talukdars. It was only because of high rents and security of tenure. It was against begar. Next, tribals. Who led the tribals? It was led by Elluri Sitaram Raju. What were the causes of the resentment? It was a movement against colonial forest laws because their entry into the forests were restricted. What did they do? So they used violence to counter forest laws. Raju persuaded people to wear khadi and give up drinking. Now, Swaraj in the plantations. First of all, Inland Emigration Act. Under this law, plantation workers were not allowed to leave the tea gardens without permission, and in fact, they were rarely given such permission. And what is next, which is very important, is how did plantation workers see the call of Swaraj? For them, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village they had come from. When the workers heard of the non-cooperation movement that defied the authorities and headed home, they believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their villages. However, they never reached home. They were caught up by the police and beaten up brutally. Students, now you should be able to answer these questions. 1. What was Justice Party? So, Justice Party was the party of non-Brahmins in Madras. When the council elections were held in provinces, they were boycotted in all provinces except in Madras. In Madras, the Justice Party participated in the elections with the hope that the non-Brahmins would be in a position to gain some power. Next question. Explain the movement in the towns in detail. We have already touched this in detail. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges. Headmasters and teachers resigned. Lawyers gave up their practices. Council elections were boycotted. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor shops were picketed. Traders refused to trade in foreign goods. This is mentioned in page number 58. So you must refer to your textbook also. Next question. What were the economic effects of non-cooperation movement? This is a very important question. The effects of non-cooperation movement on the economic front: foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops were picketed, foreign clothes were burnt in huge bonfires, the import of foreign clothes halved between 1921 and 1922, and in terms of values it dropped from rupees 102 crore to rupees 57 crores. Not only this, merchants and traders refused to trade in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. You will see the next question as a hash. How did non-cooperation movement start with participation of middle class people in the cities? Explain its impact on the economic front. Why I have given this question? This is an original CBSE 2018 5 marks questions. That means you have to combine the answers of question number 2 and question number 3. Question number 4. Why did non-cooperation movement slow down in the cities? It slowed down in the cities basically for two reasons. One, khadi was more expensive, and two, we had the absence of alternate institutions. Again, go through the book, page number 58. Next question. What led to the spread of non-cooperation movement to the countryside? This is mentioned in page number 59. The peasants had to do begar at the landlord's farm without any payment. The tenants had no security of tenure and were regularly evicted from land. The peasants therefore demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and boycott of oppressive landlords. What is the meaning of begar? Begar is a practice where the worker is forced to render service to the master free of charge or at a nominal remuneration. This question has already come in the board 2017 as a 1-mark question. What were the reasons for military guerrilla movement in the Gudam Hills of Andhra Pradesh? This is mentioned in page 60 of your textbook. The answer is basically the forest laws which were implemented in the forest areas, which prevented their entry into the forest to graze their cattle, to collect their fuels or fruits. Further, they were also asked to do begar. What methods did the tribals adopt to gain Swaraj? They attacked police stations, they attempted to kill British officials, they carried on guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. You will find it in page 60. How had peasants and tribals participated in the non-cooperation movement in different parts of the country? You have to explain this. And this question has come in the board examinations 2019. You prepare this of your own. Next question. What do you mean by Inland Emigration Act of 1859? Under this law, plantation workers were not allowed to leave the tea gardens without permission, and in fact, they were seldom given this permission. What were the plantation workers' understanding of Mahatma Gandhi and his notion of Swaraj? This question is again very important and it has come in the board examination 2019. For the plantation workers in Assam, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village they had come. They believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their villages. They imagined it to be a time when all sufferings and all troubles would be over.
Why did Mahatma Gandhi withdraw the non-cooperation movement? What was civil disobedience movement? Who participated in it? Who did not participate? All these questions we will see in the next subunit towards civil disobedience in the next class. Till then, thank you.